Hi everyone, welcome to Chapter 4. Okay, Chapter 4 is a one-group t-test for the mean. And first, one interesting point here is you can do this type of test to actually solve very similar or identical problems to the type we had in Chapter 3. For example, we could have used this method that we're about to do to solve the miles per gallon Chevy Impala problem. However, where this is really exceptional and where you really would want to use this is analyzing survey questions. And that's the sample problem we're going to do here. So we're going to analyze survey questions. And so what I'm also assuming here is that you've already read the chapter up to page 72 where we're doing the sample. So it's important that you've read the chapter up to that point and understand it, and you've read the extra readings on what a t-test is. But what's important to know, even more so than understanding what a t-test is what it produces. So understanding the rationale or the thinking behind or the derivation of a t-test, what we really want to be worried about is how to calculate it and when to use it, and then what the results mean. So we're going to do the example starting on page 72. But just to set the stage a little bit, what we're doing is looking at the survey question that hotel residents were asked to fill out. It's at the top of page 72, and it's 1 being poor, 10 being excellent on a scale of 1 to 10. And they also give us right down there that the sample size is 124, that the mean was 6.58, and that the standard deviation was 2.44. Okay, so all those are given to us. And in the practice problems you'll do at the end of the chapter, sometimes this will be given, and sometimes you'll be given a list of data, and you have to derive those numbers, which you know how to do from the first chapter. So we're going to go ahead and create this. For some reason, they have us starting on cell B11. I'm going to do what the book says. I'm not exactly sure why, but we're just going to go ahead and do that. And it says type null hypothesis. And in B14, once again, I'm not 100% sure why we have the gap, but we're going to do it. Hypothesis, research hypothesis. Okay. And then the book gives us the H naught, which is the null hypothesis, colon, mean equals 5.5, and H1 is mean equals 5.2. Now, what we're looking at here is, in a survey question, the null hypothesis is always the center value of the survey question. So if it was a scale of 1 to 10, the center value is 5.5. Many people think it's 5, but it's not. It's 5.5 is the middle number. If it was a scale of 0 to 10, it would be 5. If it's a scale of 1 to 7, it's 4. So it's always the center value. So that can be a little tricky. So it's 5.5 in this case. So your null hypothesis, I'm going to go ahead and expand this column, will be 5.5, and your research hypothesis is 5.5. Now, I like to enter things in the more formal way that we've already learned. So I'm going to undo what I just did and do it a little fancier, but I wanted to put that in there for the book. And I'm going to go H sub 0. I want to do it right, so I'm going to make this small. Remember, I right-click it, format, subscript, OK. And I'll show you a little, enter, show you a little shortcut here. I'm going to hit Control-C and copy that and paste the H naught there. And then I'm just going to change the 0 to a 1. And it's already a subscript, so that's a little shortcut. And then I'm going to go equal sign here, and then I'm going to go the not equal sign. So I got to go to Insert, Symbol. This is all from the last chapter, so that's why I'm going a little quick. I assume you all remember. And since it now will be under your recently used symbols, it'll be easy to find. Just click on it there. Close. And then we can do 5.5. And then this will also be 5.5. And what's also interesting about this, we'll make it pretty. We'll actually probably mess this up in a minute. I'll have to widen these, but it looks nice like that. Oops, oh, it automatically changed it to 6. Okay, I'm going to widen these back out because we'll need those in a few minutes. But did it there just to make it pretty. We'll go ahead and put these two cells to be right justified, and these can be left justified. Make it a little better. For these types of problems, for these survey question problems, the hypothesis is also equal to the mean. In this case, they designate the mean as mu, which that's the Greek symbol for, it looks like the letter U, but it's mu in this case. And so it's also equal to the mean. So just so you understand the book's notation. So let's go ahead and do what the book suggests here. We're in B17, so we're going to put n, and then in B20, mean, B23, standard dev. We've all been here before in previous chapters. And then we're going to do standard error, critical t, and then in B32 we're going to do t-test. In B36 we're going to do the result, and in B41 do the conclusion. Now it really seems to me that it would be far more efficient to not have all these spaces here so that we could see everything on one page. In fact, it's so inconvenient at this point to have everything spread out that I'm going to go ahead and remove and collapse all of this so that everything's right next to each other and we could see it all at once. So even though this is not how the book's doing it, at this point it's interfering, all the spacing is interfering with learning and in efficiency in learning. So we're going to go ahead and remove a bunch of these spaces. So I'm going to highlight those, and then I right click and hit delete. I'm going to leave one space there, and then I'll get rid of all the extra spaces here so we can see all of this. Now if you're following along, you don't have to get rid of these, or you can. And I'm actually going to, the reason it gave the spaces for the conclusion and the result was out of convenience for, so we can do the typing. So I'll leave those. But they gave us the n. They skipped a space over here, which is fine. And the n is 124. The mean is 6.58. The standard deviation is 2.44. We're not calculating them once again because they were given to us. And we're going to do the standard error, which is equals your standard deviation divided by the square root of the number, which is right there. D14 is now D14. So that's 0.219. Okay. And next we're going to do the critical t. Now the book, we're going to do this differently than the book because I'm going to teach you something a little more advanced. The book uses a standard value for critical t. In fact, they talk to you in the chapter about looking it up at a chart at the end of the book. Now, to me it seems that if we're going to do these things in Excel, we have to do it right, and we're going to do it in a little more advanced way in Excel. So instead of looking things up in a chart, which if you were doing this in the workplace and you didn't have your book with you, you can always Google the chart. But there's a way, Excel will calculate this for you if you want to type in the formula. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go equals t dot inverse dot 2t, open parentheses, 0.05, comma, degrees of freedom. And in this particular kind of problem, we subtract 1 from the count for the degrees of freedom. So it's 123. Close parentheses. And it says 1.979. In the book it says 1.96. This is actually a little more accurate So we'll go with this. And then finally the t-test to get our t-test result. So the t-test is going to be equals, then we take open parentheses, our mean, so I'm going to do the reference of cell D15, minus the mean, the mean from the surveys minus the hypothesis, which they also call the mean. But in this case, it's the mean from the surveys, all the surveys that you've calculated minus your hypothesis number, close parentheses, divided by your standard error. Okay, enter. And you get 4.92. So we're going to go ahead and change these to 2 decimal places. Now we line up with the book. So we've done this, but what does it all mean? What have we really proven? What's going on here? And the numbers we're looking to compare are our t-test and our critical t. If our t-test is smaller than our critical t, we accept the null hypothesis. And if we accept the null hypothesis, that means that the null hypothesis is equal to 5.5, or the center of the survey. That means that the survey doesn't really give us much of a result. That means that the people who took the survey didn't have a strong opinion on the front desk friendliness, right? Because they were right in the middle. They didn't think it was poor. They didn't think it was excellent. They were right in the middle. That would be if this t-test number was smaller than the critical t. However, the t-test number is bigger than the critical t. So that means that there was a significant result. That means that we reject the null hypothesis and accept the research hypothesis. Because see, it says H1 is not equal to 5.5. Since this number is bigger than this number, that means that it's not equal to 5.5. And so the result is, well, and I'm going to go a step further before we actually type the result. And we're just going to type the one from the book because it's excellent. And that is, we can see from common sense that 6.58 is larger than the hypothesized number. So we could say that the service was rated significantly, remember that key word, significantly higher, because this number is bigger than this number, that the service was rated significantly higher, or I should say that the service was significantly friendly, that the desk clerk would be significantly friendly, since 6.58, which is closer to excellent than the mean, so you say the service was better, or significantly friendly, or significantly better. So the way we're going to type this out is, since the absolute value, and I'll talk about that in a second, of t of 4.93 is greater than the critical t of 1.96. I'm only going to use 2 lines instead of 4 on this. We reject the null hypothesis and accept the research hypothesis. Okay? And because of that, I'm going to get rid of 2 of these lines here, just to make it a little prettier. Bring that conclusion up. All right, so we have, since the absolute value of t of 4.93 is greater than the critical t of 1.96, we reject the null hypothesis and accept the research hypothesis. Okay, we used absolute value there, and from your reading you saw that this number here, we look at the absolute value. And the absolute value, which you may remember from junior high math, I'm sure it was a long time ago for many of you, is the positive of any number. So if the t-test came back at negative 4.93, we just simply get rid of the negative sign. Okay? And 4.93 would then be bigger than critical t. So this is always a positive number. Now if you want to do that in Excel so you never have to worry about switching it, you can change this formula to absolute value, ABS, and then add a parentheses on either side. So that means if it will convert it to absolute value, so that number will always be positive. So you could do that, you can put that formula in that cell and never have to worry about it. Okay, moving on to the conclusion. St. Louis, I'm just going to put MH for Marriott Hotel, guests rated the front desk clerks as significantly, sorry about my bad typing there, friendly last week when they took the survey. Okay? So the reason we can say that they were significantly friendly is that 6.58 is greater than 5.5, and we've rejected the null hypothesis. Okay? And now if this mean was, say, 3.1, see how all the numbers change, with the same standard deviation and standard error, the t-test would then go to 10.95, the absolute value of the t-test, and so we could say the St. Louis guests rated the front desk clerks as significantly unfriendly last week because the mean, 3.1, would now be below the hypothesized mean. Okay. So, and if we came back here at say the mean was 5.2, oh, now we see that the t-test is less than the critical t, so we would accept the null hypothesis, and our conclusion would be that the St. Louis Marriott guests did not have a significant opinion of the front desk service. Or you could say did not rate the front desk service as either friendly or unfriendly. You could word it that way as well. Okay, that's it for Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is a little shorter. I've changed the formatting a little from the book. You may use the book's formatting, you may use my formatting, you may use your own formatting. Just make sure that everything is clearly labeled and that your result and conclusion are very clear and obvious for me to read. But beyond that, I'm purposefully changing the formatting just a little so you get used to seeing different things and that you take ownership of your own worksheet just a little. But once again, if you do it just like the book, that is perfectly okay with me. Okay, we'll be back for Chapter 5.